It's just Jersey, man. We're a different breed.
Let's go!
Because who doesn't want to win in Jersey?
And the Scarlet Knights did not have a national champion before tonight, and it's RU times 2.
What's going on, everybody? Big weekend in the Big Ten's Breakdown in the Barn, episode 6. We are back. We're live with my man Eric Winnock. Eric, how you making out? What are your initial thoughts from the weekend?
No, we're making out good. I think a couple things, John. Number one, obviously the fact that we've got 5 going to the Nationals. If you think back to the beginning of the season or last couple of years, you would expect hopefully that this Rutgers program would send more than 5. But ironically, even though we're only sending 5, in my opinion, John, this is probably the best shot we have at getting 3 or even possibly more All-Americans. Okay, in the past, we've always had 1 or 2 we thought could squeak through. But let's break it down really at a high level. We had 3 place winners that automatically qualified, and we've kind of run down them over the weekend. And I know you did a couple of rundowns as well. And to me, the biggest surprise is not necessarily that he qualified. I think you and I both agreed he would, but Mikey Merkel Van Brill, okay? After taking that opening loss that we knew he was going against a wrestler who was a thrower, we didn't love the matchup, especially the way Mike's, style is. We knew it'd be a tough run to come back and place here. I still thought even if he didn't place top 8, he was going to get the at-large. But boy, did he go on a run, okay? And he blowed through, I think, 3 top 5 ranked wrestlers in terms of the tournament, top 15 seeds, all 3 of them in terms of the overall rankings. And to me, I think just the tournament of his life. And I'm so proud of the kid. He won in convincing fashion, the way, he works his tie-ups. The way he loves to run that Merkel from very top. So to me, that was a really bright surprise. And I like him. I like the momentum he has going into this tournament. We talked about it. He had a bunch of losses early in the year, but they were all the tough wrestlers. He's kept them tight. He's taking the momentum he had from last year. We knew Van Brill was just needed that little bit of extra oomph to get through, that little bit of offense. I really like the way he performed.
Yeah,
Okay.
you said 3. He actually beat 4 guys in the top 15. I think it went number 5, 7, 12, and 15 that he beat in that road to 3rd. And that was a true All-American performance. I mean, that's what you do that at Nationals. You're finishing in the top 6. Really, I know we talked about this earlier. He was, I believe, 0-3 at the time, 0-2, but we were saying he's wrestling like an All-American title, All-American podium threat. And, he showed it. He showed it yesterday. Also, I know I mentioned Paytonomania. That's a guy that I saw that matchup, and I was like, oh, man, I didn't like that matchup. I think if Mikey gets him again, he wrestles a little smarter and doesn't get that headlock. Good to happen in the Big Ten. That guy's going to Nationals too. He got a bid. That guy's going to be a landmine wherever he goes in the bracket. He's going to get a bad seed, and whoever faces him is going to have a bit of issues. I knew he was a scary opponent, and yeah, Mike Van Brill, man, that was a heck of a performance.
Yeah, what I like about that performance in general is a wrestler will always come through, maybe get the big upset, and then they have a tendency after they get the big upset, maybe have a little bit of a letdown. The fact that he had upset after upset after upset, and then he had the big revenge match against Purdue, to me, that shows that he's shaping into form. This wasn't a one-hit wonder in the tournament. This is a wrestler who showed he was prepared. He's got his game plan down pat despite that first opening loss, okay? So I really like the momentum here because, like I said, this wasn't just kind of a fluke win or he caught somebody. He really showed consistency throughout the tail end of this tournament, and I like that momentum going on. And one last thing I want to say, John, about Mikey Van Brill, and I don't think he'd remember it, but I remember running into Mikey's dad when Rutgers wrestled Princeton, if you recall, when they played at High Point Solution Stadium out on the floor. And if I recall, he took a tough loss. And I looked at him, I said, you know what? In a couple of years, you're going to completely forget about this. One day your son's going to be wrestling at Nationals and you're going to be looking at an All-American status. It's come to pass. So that makes me feel good. The fact that he's basically come full circle here. I hope he comes back next year because we know this is a free year. This is not Mikey's last year. If he doesn't choose, I think he might have a similar situation next year where maybe, the first half of the year, he's not enrolled for classes, maybe take some grad courses. But I don't want to look to next year. I want to concentrate on this year. And speaking of this year, let's jump then to basically Seabass. And we knew he was not just a contender to win the Big Ten championships, but win the whole thing. Obviously, he takes third, so he doesn't get the Big Ten championships. That would have been 3 in a row. But between you and me, John, I'm happy with this performance. He took a tough locking hands, which really put him in a bind. That put it into Southern victory. He looked a little gassed in that Southern victory bout to give up the 2 points. But to me, that's the layoff of 5 weeks of not wrestling. To me, he came back, battled strong, took red, with the 1 point win. So to me, I like the fact that he's starting around into shape. Let's go to nationals. Let's learn from that loss. Nicky Lee he had a good tough match against Iowa in the finals. To me, these 3 wrestlers, any one of them can win it. But here's my issue. What is the seeding going to be like at 141 come nationals? Because I think that plays a little bit against some of these wrestlers. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so first off, unbelievable match. Him and Nick Lee, that was one of the best matches that I've watched in a long time. I mean, I'm definitely the match of the weekend. It was back and forth, any given day. I'll tell you what, those 3, Ironman, Lee, Seabass, they're definitely the top 3 in the country. Even Red, I'll throw him in there, probably number 4, but not at that level of those top 3. Now, the way the seeding works, it's going to be a little wonky. Now, we know the Wrestling Nomad comes out with this every year. He comes out with the seedings, and usually he does it based on the criteria. He figures all this stuff out, and he came out with the seedings last year and was almost on point. He came out with these seedings for 133, and the way the seedings went, it was Ironman 1, second was Wilson from NC State, third was Demas from Oklahoma, fourth Lee, fifth Sebastian Rivera. So you got the top 3 guys in the weight at the top side of the bracket. I'm hoping things are a little wonky this year, so he's not as good as he's been in the past, the Nomad, and predicting these things. But, that's an interesting scenario where you're going to have that be a quarterfinal match. You could have that be a quarterfinal matchup. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. I really think, Lee and Seabass should be the 2nd and 3rd seed in this tournament, but it might. That might come to fruition where these guys are all on the same side of the bracket. If it happens, Seabass has to do what Seabass does, and he wins that tournament. That is amazing if he comes out as a 5th seed and runs the gamut. But I'm interested when these brackets come out. I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, my take on that is this way. If you want to win the whole thing, you got to beat the best. So in my mind, regardless, he was going to have to go through Nick Lee and Ironman to begin with. Okay. Ironman presents some different challenges than Nick Lee does. They're a little bit different style wrestlers. Okay. And let me tell you something. Ironman had that cross leg takedown he had on Lee early in that match. It was beautiful. Okay. Ironman came out to wrestle, and I thought he was going to run away with this match. But Nick Lee, I got to give this guy some credit because I've always liked Nick Lee as a wrestler. I always thought maybe he wasn't in the same category as Ironman, okay? And to me, he showed me something because you're right, that was a tremendous matchup. I thought near the end, Ironman was more of a borderline staller in that match. And I hate to say that. I don't like accusing people of that. But I really thought Nick Lee was bringing the pressure at the end, and you would think it'd be just the reverse. So I agree with you. I think all three of these guys are neck and neck. They're different styles. They both present different challenges for Sebastian. But in my view, my issue with the potential seeds is it's the Big Ten's fault. Okay. We made a decision, and I don't want to get into, why we did what we did, but we were not allowed to wrestle other teams outside the conference. So that limited the matchups. Dayton Fix didn't start wrestling to the middle of November, and he got 5 matches. So because he was able to go to an open tournament. Okay. We didn't have that opportunity. So to me, it limited how the seeding was going to be done. I also think sometimes you have to use a little bit of a human element here and accept the fact all 5 guys you mentioned are all solid wrestlers, but these 3 Big Ten wrestlers are the best 3 in the conference. I mean, in the nation. That's my opinion. So my issue is, of these 3 guys, 2 of them should be 1 and 2. And that's the bottom line. That potentially might not happen because they're going to be on the same side of the bracket. So to me, it doesn't make a difference for Seabass's chances, whether or not he gets Ironman in the quarters or what have you, or Nick Lee. He would have to beat both of them. I think if they were all 1, 2, and 3, he would have had to go through both. I just think in terms of the Big Ten, they should be the ones 1 and 2 in the finals.
No, I agree. I agree. So we'll see what happens. You know, makes a little excitement for Friday morning for everybody in the quarterfinals if it does work out that way. But we'll see what happens. Let's jump to the other third place finisher. We went 3-3 for third. Tom Paz, heck of a corny, right? Yale Street. You know, what were your thoughts on him? His performance this weekend.
This was a guy, had not been the year that we had with the COVID situation, probably would have redshirted. And I'm not saying probably, you never know, because obviously Janzer bumping up, Carenti decided to move on. But there's a good solid chance he might have redshirted. This guy comes out and just takes the world by storm, okay? What I loved about this tournament is he had the one loss, okay, to Owen, and we talked about that. I thought in the dual meet, I thought he was going to take that dual matchup. It's actually the Minnesota wrestler I was a little bit more afraid of. It was vice versa. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. But long and the short, he gets the big revenge, okay? And how does he do it? Doing what he does, okay? The big reversal, puts him to his back, pins him. That's what I talked about, John, when we first started going through the lineups earlier, when we first started kicking this off this season. What is going to impress people about Poznansky is his bottom game. You don't see true freshmen, especially at 184, come in and have a bottom game like he does, okay? And nobody has held him down, okay, for the most part. This guy's been able to get out. He doesn't just get out, though. As I told you, he's going to score from bottom. What does he do? He gets the Yale Street hook, puts him to his back, gets the fall. And to me, obviously, he wrestled the Penn State wrestler. To me, I think has the capability of winning the whole thing. You know, that was going to be a tough matchup. I knew it going in. But for him to take out Brands the way he did, and it's hard to talk about his semifinal matchup going in because obviously, you know, you had the injury default there, but he did take a 4-3 lead. So to me, the momentum was on his side. Big win against Brands, who brings his own set of trouble to the matchup. But to me, just a great role. Third place finish at 184 as a true freshman in the Big Ten championships. I don't know what else you can say. This kid's got All-American written all over him this year.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so why don't we got two other at-large bids. We got Jackson Turley, Billy Janzer. I'll tell you, Jackson Turley, he wrestled he wrestled, I believe, 29 minutes of the Big Ten tournament. He wrestled unbelievable for 28 minutes and 30 seconds. He had that one bad move, was up over a Lar, tech to Lar previously, ended up getting pinned. But other than that, he looked very good, beat a tough Drew Hughes, came back to ninth, gave the number 2 seed all he could handle. I definitely like Turley's chances going into nationals. He seems to be wrestling really hot.
Yeah, and the thing with Turley is live by the sword, die by the sword. We know he's a big play guy. So in the loss, I think was he up 4-1? So he was moving forward. He always goes for the big move. I'm not going to criticize him for him. That's how he wrestles. Okay. That's how he pulls off the big upsets. It's who he is. So to me, you're going to have to take the good with the bad with Turley. But I agree with you. He's really come on this year. We're seeing what we expected to see when they recruited him, okay, from Virginia. This was I think, 4-time Virginia State champ. We knew he was an exciting wrestler. When he was going through his recruiting, it was always going to be said that this guy's going to light up the rack. So I think we're starting to see what we expected now that he's in a weight he feels comfortable with. The bottom line, John, is I think we both agreed he was most likely going to get an at-large if he didn't place here. I thought he did more than enough in the tournament. He's got enough big wins coming into this. So to me, he's one of those guys who have an outside shot at All-American. To me, it's still less than 50% because this is a tough weight class. He did go neck and neck with Nebraska. I mean, it was a 2-point loss there. So that's a hell of a wrestler that he stood firm with. His loss, we talked about it. It's the way he wrestles. To me, he comes back and beats that kid again. So to me, I think he's got a really shot to make some noise. I think he gets at least 2 wins in the national tournament. He's going to be knocking on the blood round. Whether or not he can break through or not, it really depends on how the brackets fall out, how he gets seeded. So I don't want to make any grand statements of what he's going to do in the national. He's exactly what we expected. Likewise, going up to 197, I think you and I both agreed that Janzer most likely, even if he didn't place in the top 6 or 7, was going to get an at-large bid. I think he's got enough name recognition. He had a great season, ending off last year. He got the at-large last year. And we both know the Big Ten probably got screwed out of a couple of allocations here. And I think they knew that. And I think he did enough in this tournament to show that he kept things close. He's got the body of work going into it. So to me, Janzer getting the at-large made perfect sense. And again, I think he's going to have a little bit of a harder time than Turley to break through in the Nationals. It doesn't mean he can't pull together a win or two in this tournament. But to me, I think he deserved the at-large. So I'm comfortable with the 5 we have sending. I think it's the 5 we all expected. 125, obviously, he made a hell of a little run. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but I like the future at 125.
Yeah, I think he showed some greatness in this tournament. I think the Big Ten got a little screwed at this weight because, you know, they were loaded. I mean, I really believe that the Big Ten should have set 12 at this weight. I think if it was a normal year, they would have gotten probably 11 out. At 11 automatic qualifiers. I was looking at the qualifiers outside of the Big Ten. The Big Ten did send, they did get 2 of the at-large bids, Cardinale and Silver. Both of them, you look at their records and you look at their wins, they have some very credible wins. You know, beating Mitch McKee, who was ranked 11th at the time in this tournament. When I look at the other 5 at-large bids, I was just going through their records before this this call. They all are about 10-2, but I don't think there was one top 25 win in any of those 5 wrestlers. So I think, I think the future looks bright. I would have liked to have seen them take a Shover. I thought. I was optimistic. I thought that he had a good shot just based off of his record, and his losses are all the top 13 guys. You know, it's not like he lost to anyone that's not that good. The guys that are going, they have some losses to people outside of the 25, and they did not beat someone in the 25. Yeah. So I was a little disappointed with that. Kinneard, when I looked at who was out,
we went through
get an automatic qualifier. I think it made sense that he wasn't going to get one just because, even though I think he's better than a lot of guys at the tournament, the way it shook up, there were a lot of guys that were very good that did not get that automatic qualifier. And he just didn't have the wins. He had the matches where he looked very good, but the W's are what they're looking.
Yeah, and if you go to 157, I mean, I'm going through the list of the at-large. We knew Hartman was going to get one for Army. I mean, this was a kid who had to default out of the tournament. If you look at where he was in terms of, his rankings and how he's been performing, this was going to be an at-large pick right off the bat. So we knew right off the bat you're taking one away. You look at, Vandermeer from Stanford. I think we mentioned him. I mentioned Jacob Wright. So a lot of these names, Rufin, these are all guys that before we even kind of got to this point, we knew we're going to take spots. So I think it was a numbers game here from Kennard, and we just knew the numbers weren't there. And it's of no fault to his own. If he doesn't go out there and wrestle, what can you do? Okay. Yeah. And the fact that his one big win against Cleary, obviously he didn't perform to task in the Big Tens. So that also went against him. Listen, it was a wild card to try to take a chance here. I also think Goodell didn't have any other options. I mean, what are you going to stick a D'Angelo or somebody out there that hasn't wrestled all year that, they're not really prepared for 157, this meat grinder. So you had to hope that maybe Cleary went on a run here to make that win look better. And hopefully that something happened at the at-large that they would give him the bid. It didn't happen. I agree with you. I hate to say it's the right call. It's the call I would have made. In terms of 125, I agree with your overall premise. I think the Big Ten really kind of got the short stick, and simply because they half this weight class probably should be Big Ten wrestlers. I can make an argument for more. But to me, we had a wrestler who was a true freshman who's coming in with very little resume, had the big win against the Michigan, against the Minnesota wrestler. After that, it's really hard to make a long-term case, the fact that his history should get him in. So to me, I think I'm fine with how both shaked out. But as I told you, I think 125 is going to be really solid for us. I like how he wrestled. Okay. Even against the kid Howard from Penn State, he fell behind pretty big. He had a hard time on bottom, but I don't know if you noticed that third period, he just didn't lay on his stomach and detect. He went after him. Okay. And I really like the way Shawver wrestled in that third period against Howard. That showed me something. And they always tell you could see more in a loss than a win. That's a perfect example of that. And this was a kid who was gassing early in the tournament, even with his big win against the Minnesota wrestler, because he just hasn't had the body of work to stand up to this tournament. But I just like the way he closed out. I think this kid's got guts. I think he's got gumption. I'm looking forward to him kind of coming out strong. And the last thing I'll say about 125 is Spencer Lee. But I don't know. He tweaked his knee there, okay, against the Purdue wrestler. I don't know. Do you think he's hurt? Because he walked off the mat. If you read his lips, I don't know if he said I blew it out, but he didn't look too happy. And in that interview, he looked not concerned, but you can definitely see frustration.
Uncomfortable. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, he has 2 weeks but maybe there's a little bit of a kink in that armor there, and someone could pull off the unthinkable at 125. But he looked amazing. Yeah. And speaking about dominant wrestlers, what about heavyweight? Gable?
We talked about early on whether or not Paris was up to the task. I had made a comment that I said no one is in Gable Stevenson's universe. I took some crap when I said that on one of the Rutgers forums, and I was getting lectured how far Paris has come. And even you talked about it, John, how this guy's improving. I started to drink the Kool-Aid because I agree with you. This kid's rounding into form. I think he's going to make a run at the heavyweight in terms of not just in the collegiate scene, but I think in the international scene. I hate to say I was right, but what I saw from Gable, I mean, I don't know if Paris just came out a little tight. But to me, if you're going to break through on Gable, you got to suck it up and tie in and get close. You cannot shoot from space on this kid, okay? I'm not calling a kid. He's a grown man at this point. But if you're not going to tie up and go toe-to-toe with Gable, you're not taking him down, okay? And I saw that. I saw Paris wrestling almost like he was tying up from the outside, trying to get, and he took a shot. It was almost a dive. And once he did that, I think Gable knew he had him. I think he senses fear, and not so much fear, but tentativeness. And Gable just took him apart, picked him apart after that. And I would say two things. One thing you'll notice about Gable, John, the way he shoots, the angles he takes, and that's what makes a superior wrestler. It's not your level change. It's not how deep of a shot, but if you can get an angle, and the sweep single he had into the double, the angle he took to get it and the speed he did it, you don't see that from heavyweights, okay? I haven't seen a shot like that since Kyle Snyder did it, and Gable is 20, 30 pounds heavier than Kyle Snyder. So I was really impressed with the shots and the angles. And in terms of the extracurricular activity, listen, I'm not going to get into Gable as a person. I don't know him personally, but this kid's going to be one hell of a WWE star one day.
No, I agree, man. I just think you're right. I mean, Mason has been improving, but he's not there yet. Maybe in 2 years, if Gable stays around, he might have a shot at catching him. But Gable just showed that he is unbelievable. I think for the Hodge with that type of performance, I think they're going to give it to Spencer just because Spencer is going to be so dominant. But I feel like,
John, if he's healthy,
Gable deserves it. If Gable is because of the strength of competition, if Gable dominates everybody and then beats Paris again like he did at Big Tens, I think Gable is a deserving Hodge Trophy winner. Spencer does what Spencer does. Just because of the strength of competition, 1.5, you don't have a world-class athlete like Mason Paris there. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to give this.
Okay. John, my last comment on the Big Ten championships is Ryan Deacon. I don't think we've given this kid enough credit for how dominant he's turning into at 157. When we talk about the Spencer Lees, the Gables, and all these guys, I think Deacon is just, he's quietly turning into a complete stud. And no, he's not going to win the Hodge, okay? But when you talk about that second tier wrestler, when I mean second tier, I'm talking about the A-list. He's right up there. I've been impressed how he's wrestling. I think he blows through the nationals. I just think it needs to point out how well Deacon is wrestling right now.
No, I agree. I think, like you said, quietly coming along. I mean, he's the third best guy at pound for pound, in my opinion. I mean,
absolutely.
I think Iden Hidley, David Carr are going to try to have something to say about it, but Deacon just seems like he's at another level than these guys at 157. He's been kind of just slowly but surely distancing himself from the field. That was a tough weight class at 157 in the Big Ten, and he just totally went through and dominated it. I see him doing the same at nationals. Maybe Hidley or Carr, whoever comes out of that bottom bracket, can give him a somewhat of a match, but I think he wins. I think he wins in the finals by an easy, 4 points.
I agree. And speaking of Carr, why don't we jump to the Big 12? And I just got to give a shout out to my man John, because he's been preaching the AJ "I'm too sexy for my car" Ferrari the whole time. And, we've had an opportunity to meet AJ a couple of times, obviously at Final X and so forth. Rutgers was recruiting him. But talk to me about AJ, talk to me about 197, and talk to me about the Big 12.
So listen, I've been following him on Instagram, see him getting his hair cut, see him training. This guy is not real. It's not real. You can't have a guy named AJ Ferrari that does these dances on Instagram, gets his hair cut, looks the way he does. It's just not real. It's like a fate thing is happening here with this guy. This weight class was loaded in the Big 12. The names in there was unbelievable. A lot of top-ranked guys. He goes on a tear. He beats Jake Woodley a couple times. They had close matches. He beats him 8-4. Then he goes Tanner Sloan 7-1. And Buchanan almost gets the major on him. It was an interesting thing. It came down. He needed the major for the team to win, but he beats him 13-8, who Buchanan beat previous number one Noah Adams twice. So this guy, it's just not real. He's going to be the first 5-time Division I national champion in history. I'm telling you, I called that a couple weeks ago. People said I was crazy, but it's just not real to have somebody that looks like him, that does his Instagram stuff, and that is that good of a wrestler. He can be doing all the nonsense and then be a horrible wrestler, but this guy is the real deal. He's under John Smith. I would have loved to see him come to Rutgers, but I think he's gonna take it.
Yep. I can't argue.
Yep. Also, I want to say in the Big 12, 125 was a very tough weight. Brody Teske beat Taylor Lamont, but then on the back end, Killian Cardinale, he came to party. He took third. He had a big win over Trevor Mastriani and Danny Vega. Ran the gamut back, took third. He's going to be a threat coming into nationals. This 125-pound weight class at the national tournament. I mean, you got Spencer, and you got everybody else. I mean, anybody has a shot here. So Killian Cardinale, his uncle, Isaiah Cardinale, wrestled at Rutgers. He was a part of the union up there, and he's really coming along. I think he's quietly making a good name for himself. Had a great year last year, third in the Big 12. He's right there with all these 125-pounders. I think he could definitely make a run in 2 weeks.
And 133, Dayton Fix obviously made his return, and he's just been lights out since he's gotten back. And listen, I still like RBY. I like the win he had, at Big Tens. Maybe a little criticism that maybe he was showboating a little bit with the stalling, kind of running away a little bit. But to me, that's how you defeat the Iowa wrestler. Okay. Bottom line is it's going to be an interesting matchup. And I think there's a lot of good wrestling in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, I think both came away with a tie for the title. But listen, we'll pick up on this when the nationals come, once the seeding comes in. But again, I agree with you. 125 outside of Spencer Lee, as long as he's healthy, to me is wide open.
All right. Yep. You got it. Hey, a lot of wrestling. We're going to be back in a little while to break when these brackets come out. We're going to break them down. Let's head to Southern Victory, Eric. I know some things happened in the Pellicone. Let's tell us about that in Italy.
Yeah, well, I think we had a little Italian home cooking here, because despite significantly outshooting Chamizo, the official decided to place Jordan Burroughs on the passivity clock a couple of times. That cost him the win here. But on the side, I didn't see the same aggression. I didn't see the sock pulled up. I didn't see the Jordan Burroughs we're used to seeing. So to me, despite being put on the shot clock, which I question, okay, I know it's a little bit different from stalling. It's more about controlling the center of the mat, but hard not to give him, a little bit of the benefit of doubt there. 165 is on notice. I think Palatake is lurking. Let's see what happens. But I think Jordan recovers. I think he's just getting his weight in line. I think he's just trying to get in game shape. I think he's going to be ready to roll. John, talk to me about Miles Lee and Kay Ferrier fighting championships.
Oh, man, long time coming. Miles Lee this weekend makes his pro debut. People don't know about this kid. Third-year wrestler, makes the finals at Fargo, losing to one Jacob Warner from Iowa. He's the real deal. I trained with him when he was 16, when I was training for my fight. Yeah, he's unbelievable double, unbelievable strength, undefeated amateur career, won the Cage Fury title. This kid is going to be the real deal. Keep an eye on him this weekend on UFC Fight Pass. Also, Neil Jones fighting for the heavyweight strap. Gonna be a good one. Check that out. Back to you, Eric. More from the Pellicone.
Yeah, our boy Nicky Suriano continues his role to the Olympics in his attempt to, make the team. He took 2 tough losses, very close losses, both to Afghani wrestler, but I think he's starting to come into form. I do like how he's wrestling, okay? He is not the same freestyle wrestler he was, a couple of years ago, but to me, again, that first loss he took, a little bit of a hand fight issue, hands to the face, things of that nature, but again, he'll round out to form. I like the way he's wrestling. He takes second. And the other wrestler I want to mention is Mark Hall. He once again takes a loss to Zaid Valencia, this time 11-0. I feel like Valencia is really widening the gap to Mark Hall going back to their college days. Okay, so to me, if Mark Hall is going to make a run here in the Olympics, he's got to take care of business at home. I like the way Zaid's wrestling. One other wrestler I want to mention kind of locally, and that's Tyler Graff and JRTC. He takes the bronze. Nice wrestling from him. Hopefully he can make one more team here. But again, a little bit of Rutgers news there. Nice job by Tyler Graff. John, UFC card this weekend. What do you got?
Oh, man, big fight, 3 titles fight. Amanda Nunes keeps the title. Aljamain Sterling got hit with an illegal knee. Those guys are going to run it back. DQ they're going to run it back. But Sean Brady did what we all knew he was capable of. Dominant performance over Jake Matthews. Arm triangle in the third. He comes in. Number 14th fighter in the world this week. And also, we got Jan Blochowicz coming out for the UFC title. Got outstruck early by Adesanya. Fourth, fifth round, he goes to the wrestling, gets the takedown, very dominant 2 rounds. Put some respect on his name. His first title defense, he gets it done. That's all I got, Eric. Good times. We're going to be breaking down those brackets soon. Keep looking for us. Breakdown at the Barn. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and YouTube. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.